Hi, and thank you for watching Missouri Viewpoints, the program dedicated to the civil and informed discussion of the social, political, and economic issues that affect us all. I'm Mike Ferguson, and as always, we're coming to you from downtown Grandview and the Hard Bean Cafe at 801 Main Street. Well, my guest this week represents PeaceWorks Kansas City. His name is Henry Stoever, and he's an attorney, and he's also on PeaceWorks Kansas City's committee that is dealing with this week's topic, which is the Honeywell Kansas City plant that manufactures parts for nuclear weapons for the U.S. military. Henry, thank you for being here on the program this week.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now let's go ahead and first let you introduce PeaceWorks Kansas City. Okay. What is it? What do you all do? And what is it that you're working for?
This organization has been around for 25 years. Originally, it was part of SANE and then Nuclear Freeze. And we are part of a national organization called Peace Action. And part of our goal is for the reduction and eventual elimination of nuclear weapons. And this is what was proposed in the treaties that our country signed in the 1970s, the Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaties. Again, the goal was to reduce nuclear weapons for the eventual elimination of those weapons.
A lot of people may be saying this is a national and international issue, but we have a turn that does affect the Kansas City area, does affect Missouri, which is what we're talking about. Now, this is a very complicated issue, and unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go into all angles of it. But just so you all know at home, here are some of the basics. The current facility is located at the Federal Complex on Bannister Road in South Kansas City. The site for the planned new facility is only about 8 or 8.5 miles from the current one, and that's just off 71 Highway and 150 Highway, which is very close to where we're sitting right here in Grandview. The facility makes about 85% of the parts that make up America's nuclear weapons, and the facility does make non-nuclear components. Essentially, it makes everything from nuts and bolts to the shell casings to even timers that go into the weaponry. Now, PeaceWorks Kansas City opposes the planned new facility for a variety of reasons, and I noticed right now you're focusing on the environmental impact study. Tell me a little bit about that angle.
Okay, the federal government submitted a draft environmental assessment, and I have sent a letter to the GSA, the General Services Administration, pointing out 8 areas of defects, deficiencies, or objections I have to this. This plant produces, the production is 98% related to weapons. It doesn't produce other types of alternative energy or whatever. It's devoted almost solely to the production of these weapons. What we oppose in part is that the new plant will cost $500 million, and there have been some figures to say that after the leasing and other development, it may be as high as $900 million. In the old days, persons used to sometimes deplete the soil in doing cotton farming or whatever, and then they would just move on down the road to a new ground and then deplete it and move on. Here we have a site that has been regulated, reviewed by the federal government, by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources over a number of years. There are toxic sites, there are contaminated sites, there are 200 wells there in which monitoring takes place as to what pollutants are in the system. The old plant affects air, water, and the ground. And we are asking, why is no money being put into place at the same time as what the new plant is being proposed? There is a estimate, and again, these are government figures, that the old plant, it would cost $287 million to clean up the old site. What we are seeing already is that the Internal Revenue Service has left the old site. GSA intends to move downtown in the next several years. The Honeywell operation, they hope to move 8 miles south. And the Marine Corps has already left that site. So what we see here is just an abandoned site. In speaking with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, they do not want this site to simply be left abandoned or mothballed. That is not the answer. We are asking them to be environmentally responsible and accountable for the contamination that is already at this site.
Okay, now one of the arguments that the government is making for the new site is the current site is 50-some years old, started as a Navy plant that produced airplane engines, or jet engines, I should say. And they say that the new site will be cleaner and more efficient and will, in the end, save about $100 million a year. How do you assess those claims?
They have not shown any details of how they come up with the figures of $100 million a year. We already have this large track at 95th, Urbanister and Troost. The buildings are already there, the equipment, the capital, everything is there. The sewer lines, the main roads to connect this facility, they do not compute that into their projected estimate. So I think that their business model is way off in that they are not telling us a number of things of the additional cost that will take place at the new plant. They could simply use the old plant because they could use some of the buildings rather than all of the buildings. They could bring some of those up to environmentally standards to make them more efficient. But they have not revealed why is this exodus taking place from the old plant. And we maintain that it is a contaminated site, and perhaps in the future it may be a Superfund site. And again, the city cannot manage a site like that. The state of Missouri cannot manage a site like that, and we are asking that this be budgeted. And what the GSA says is that, well, we will review this in the year 2015. Well, that is too far down the road. They are not committing money to a huge project requiring cleanup.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say before we move on to the next sort of topic is that it would be less expensive and environmentally more secure to clean up the current site and keep the manufacturing where it is if it has to remain at all.
That is correct. They have placed a lot of money into the current site. They have built a flood wall for a 500-year flood, and yet now they're wanting to abandon this site.
Okay, let's switch topics just a little bit. We're sitting in Grandview right now, which is basically in the backyard of this proposed new site. Grandview is a city that is dealing with some economic challenges for a variety of reasons right now. The current plan would bring about 2,400 jobs basically into our backyard. Why should people in Grandview be concerned about this instead of excited about it?
Sure. We know that a new administration will come into office. The elections are just down the road in November. The new administration will most likely have to do a reassessment of our strategic needs, whether it's offensive or defensive. We are supposed to be in a build-down process of nuclear weapons, or a reduction of nuclear weapons. And so, in effect, I am saying, why do we need a new plant? Why do we need new weapons? This seems to be such a waste. The new administration may come in and say, we'll cancel this deal. So it's not just an ordinary type of an industry. This is an industry that has a lot of minuses connected to it.
Okay, Henry, we're out of time. Thank you for being on the program. And be sure to come back next week for an interview with State Legislative candidate Lance Weber from Jackson County.